DOH decides to do a separate procurement that doesn't use GSA, that's what you don't have to do.
Appreciate that.
So on the GSA side, you have to sell $25,000 in the first 2 years of the contract. And every year thereafter, you have to sell $25,000. If not, they off-ramp you. They take you off the contract. They have the right to take you off the contract. So why do they do that? So GSA is a agency that doesn't make a profit and they can't lose money. So if they have, and companies look at the GSA schedule as an easy way to sell to the government. So you have lots of companies flocking to the GSA schedule, but if you're not actually going to sell business or sell products or services to the government, are we not videotaping anymore?
We are. We got it fixed.
Did you do that?
Literally one button.
That's all it usually takes, right? So in the case of, you have to sell $25,000 in the first 2 years of the contract and $25,000 every year thereafter under GSA. If you don't, they can off-ramp you. The reason why the government does that is because all these vendors that are on have to be managed, whether you're selling business to the government or you're not selling business to the government. So there's unilateral modifications, for example, that GSA sends out that everybody has to respond to. They have to verify that you've all responded to it. If there are amendments made or new regulations, they have to make sure that everybody's aware of it. So even if you're not selling anything on the GSA schedule, they still have to manage you. So if you've made a business decision not to sell on the GSA, or you can't sell on the GSA because you're not finding anybody to buy your products or services, they're going to kick you off after a period of time. Now, they're not mean about it. So, for example, I had a client who didn't sell $25,000 within the first 2 years. Worked hard to do it, just didn't happen. And they had a customer who said they were going to buy 2 months later, and GSA never kicked them off. You know, so they'll work with you as long as you're actively pursuing business with the federal government. The other thing about GSA is you have to be able to take credit cards. Because a lot of things that they'll do might be under the strict purchase card, micro purchases. And if you don't take credit cards, they have little things that you can, little attachments that you can add to your iPhone, which you can flip on and take credit cards. Usually there's a transaction service. So how do you get a GSA schedule? So the government, if you go out to GSA right now and you say, what's the list of GSA schedule contracts, you'll see all the different things, the different categories or schedules of things that they buy. So you'll see one for professional services. You'll see one for, they just reorganized the structure of things. You'll see one for IT services. All these different kind of categories. So what you do is you click on the one that you think is closely related to what you sell. And what it'll do is it'll send you directly to FedBizOps. Why does it send you to FedBizOps?
You got to be registered. You know what you're talking about?
That's Sam. But why would GSA send you to FedBizOps?
Did you say everything has to go through FedBizOps?
Exactly. Everything has to be on FedBizOps. So they send you to FedBizOps, and FedBizOps will show you the page of that GSA schedule. And if you look at the right, they'll show you every single section. Any amendments that have been issued, any information they want you to have is on that page. And all the forms you need to fill out, you can just click on those and fill them out.
Are sole source procurements still posted on FedBizOps? If
No.
they're just going for that one vendor anyway.
Under micro purchase, they only have to do things over $100,000 on FedBizOps. Good point, though. So you can look at the GSA schedule. You can see all the amendments that have been issued. You can see exactly what the requirements are. So there's a proposal development process. We'll talk about that in a second. Then you submit everything through eBuy. You have your IdenTrust certificate. You submit everything through eBuy. And then the government has it on their side. They lock it from you so that they can do their evaluation. So they do their evaluation, and typically they have questions. So just the clarification process that we talked about yesterday, they have that process. So they will send you a letter that says, these are the things we don't understand or we're questioning or whatever, and they send that to you. Then there's you actually respond back with changes to your proposal, answers to their questions, and then they'll schedule negotiations with you, so when we actually negotiate price. And then now, if they, once everything's, sometimes the clarification process goes back and forth, but then once that all gets finalized, then they'll send you an actual contract award, and you sign it and you submit it back up. And that's how how the schedule gets in place. And then there's a period of time where you do contract prep and startup, and we're going to talk about contract prep and startup later on today. And then usually there's like ongoing GSA maintenance, schedule maintenance. So for example, let's say you put your 68 products on the GSA schedule today, and lo and behold, you have a brainchild of 14 new products tomorrow. You can go in and add those 14 new products to your existing GSA schedule. So the schedule is good for 5 years. The government has the opportunity to renew it for another 5 years. So once you get it in place, you're pretty good to go. The only thing you have to keep in mind is that you have to give GSA a price for every year of the contract. So for every one of your line items, you have to tell them what this year's price is, this government fiscal year price is, what next government fiscal year price is, and out for 5 years.
On the 25,000, would that be per item? If we had 68 items, or is that
Per you.
for us?
Yeah. All right, this is how you develop a proposal. So as I mentioned, you go to the GSA website and figure out which schedule what schedule you can play in. And then you have to identify what SINs you want to commit. SINs are special item numbers, and these are categories of services. Okay, so before Don even scrolls his eyes at me, yes, for some odd reason, we have NAICS codes. We have, what did we learn about yesterday with DIBS? Federal supply numbers,
Stock numbers, yeah.
stock numbers, and now we have SINs. Okay, so don't shoot the messenger. So for every schedule, the government has identified certain SINs. Those SINs are related to NAICS codes. And in order for you to provide a compliant proposal to GSA, you have to make sure your SAM system has the correct NAICS codes that you've applied to as far as the SINs. So everything has to be in sync. So you could go out and fill out your SAM schedule today, your SAM registration today, and put certain NAICS codes on it. But if you decide you're going to add new products and services in the future, you need to always make sure your SAM record reflects those. Because what's going to happen is the GSA contracting officer, when they get your proposal in, they're going to go to that SAM system and make sure that you have those NAICS codes listed. Then, as I mentioned, you have to attend a training session. So the training session is basically, do you really understand what you're getting yourself into? That's pretty much the gist of the training. And your authorized negotiator, like an officer of the company, has to complete that training. That's probably your biggest challenge of this whole thing. It's only about an hour, it's not very long, and they have to go through it. The second thing that they have to do, or somebody in your organization needs to do, is you need to, it's basically a homework assignment to make sure you really understand what you're getting yourself into. So first they'll give you a videotape to listen to make sure you understand, and then they'll have you go out and work with the data to make sure you really understand. So it's things like, go to FPDS, that Federal Procurement Data System, where it shows all the sales of GSA. And quite honestly, this is a useful exercise for you. And you should do this regardless of whether you do a GSA schedule. You can go into FPDS and you can identify your competitors that are selling on the GSA schedule and what their prices are. So what the homework assignment is to go out to your NAICS code within your SIN and identify how many, not who, but how many vendors there are. And what surprises most people are that there might be thousands of other schedule holders within your NAICS code. So the idea is to get you used to the fact that you're not the only one in the game. And then what's the average sale of something under GSA? In other words, they're trying to make sure you have all the data points you need to make a good decision as to whether you want to get on the GSA schedule. I highly recommend it for you guys. I mean, I think this is what you saw You acquire this digital certificate. The price is either $119 or $189. There's two things you pay for. This one probably is $119. It's for 2 years for one person. You decide if one or two are needed, meaning if you're going to do the negotiations, you can have somebody else do them. You have to be an authorized negotiator to make any changes to the contract or upload any files. And then only the person, in other words, the digital certificate is with you, but it's on your machine. So you have to put it on your computer, and you can't make any, if you go use your computer, you can't do that. You can't upload documents from his machine, you have to use your own. Okay. So what you have to do is you have to review the prices of people in your chosen SIN, just so you can get a ballpark as to what kind of price, whether your commercial prices are going to be fair and reasonable. And then review the government spend by SIN. So you can see how much money has been spent in each SIN by this system sales query report system generation. So when you go in and do your homework, you'll see all that in there. The proposal requires you to put things in a commercial sales format. All this isn't everything.
Okay.
Everything else will be in Edge before next time, but this in particular is one. So they have a template, and you basically have to describe how you sell this commercial. So what the government is trying to do is to hold you to your same commercial business practices with this GSA schedule, but they want you to give them the best price possible. The best price you're giving anybody. You have to have letters of commitment. So if you have suppliers, you need to get letters of commitment from them, saying, I know that Blue Wolf put me on the GSA schedule, and I promise to stay committed to Blue Wolf for 5 years. You know, just so that the government knows that they're involved. Then there's an administrative proposal. What does that include? It's got things like, and keep in mind, this proposal is probably about 8 pages total, not a big deal. You have like a certain amount of room to talk about your company, like give a brief history. You have a requirement to provide a discussion on how you ensure quality deliverables, how do you provide quality products, how do you manage your subcontractors, and that's it for the administrative proposal. And, you know, like I have samples of stuff that, you know, we can use to basically tweak for your company. The other thing is this past performance evaluation. So there's 2 components of past performance for a GSA schedule. The first one is you have to write up several of your contracts. Now these can be commercial contracts or federal contracts. And they have a template, and you basically just have to fill it out. Who the customer was, point of contact for the customer, dollar value, what the statement of work was, that kind of stuff. So that's one way they check your past performance. The second way that they check your past performance is through something called, it's a company that's owned by Dun & Bradstreet. I can't think of the name of it off the top of my head, but it's, what it does is the government has selected this vendor, so you have to use this vendor, and you go onto their website and you fill out information about your customers, up to 20. You can do less. I always recommend clients do more because what this company is going to do, what this company is going to do is go out to all your vendors, all your customers, and they're going to send them a survey and basically ask them how you did. And so I always recommend doing more, because if you only submit 6 and one pings you, it looks bad. But if you have 20 and one pings you, it's not so bad. You know what I mean? So, and then when you submit your proposal, so what's going to happen is you give them the money, you give them your customer contact information, they send a survey out to your customers, they get all the feedback back, and then they send you a report, and at the same time they send your government contracting officer a report so that you can't change it. And then as part of your proposal submission, you have to upload a copy of that report. And you have to explain any issues. So if somebody ranks you low, maybe if there's some extenuating information you give. I always recommend that you contact your customers that you're going to ask to be part of this, and just kind of let them know, big customers that love you, that you've been with for a long time, and, ask them to do you a solid. GSA, that's best performance. The next thing you have to do is a price list. So for every single product you're going to offer, you have to give them prices for 5 years. You also have to give them product descriptions. And what these product descriptions are going to end up, the price and the product description is what's going to get uploaded into the GSA Advantage later on. The other thing you have to give them is invoicing support. So the government wants you to do their homework for them by showing that your prices are fair and reasonable. And the way you show them that your prices are fair and reasonable is that you've had customers pay those prices in the past. So can you give me a ballpark for how much your cleaning solution is?
Retail is $26 to $7 per gallon.
Okay, $6 or $7 per gallon. He would have to show that Home Depot or Lowe's bought that product at that unit price. Now, or the customers bought it at $6 or $7 a gallon. The other thing he would have to show under the most favored customer pricing is if Lowe's got a really discounted price, he would have to show that they got a price of $5.95. And then $5.95 would have to be his price to the GSA. GSA always wants the best price. Now, can you get around that with things, keep in mind, it's product by product. So if you have cleaning solution A and cleaning solution B, and Sean knows that they're the exact same product, but we market A to some clients and B to other clients, just like Krupp's coffee maker. If you go buy it in Marshall's or in Best Buy, you're going to pay a different price than you do in Nordstrom's, and it's going to have a different SKU number, and it's going to be the exact same product.
It does look at the value, the value for the product, and it doesn't include shipping. For example, like if we're sending something to Blue Wolf, they're just down the street, we're not going to be like, oh, there's another $750 for
Right.
it. You know what I mean? So it just...
Thank you. So I have another. So there's something called a miscellaneous CLIN, and you just put that CLIN on your contract. So SIN is special item numbers, which are the categories of products or services under a GSA schedule. CLIN, contract line item number, is every single element that's going to be on your contract. You can have a separate CLIN called miscellaneous, and you price it at $1. And you can tell the government that that miscellaneous CLIN will be used to figure out the transportation costs when an order comes in. And so if the order comes in and you have to ship it to California, and it's going to be 100 pounds, you can figure that out, and you can submit that as an invoiced item to the government. Unless the government tells you how to handle it differently.
So you're just using the $1 as like a placeholder until you see the actual amount.
Right. Because the government will always pay you your actuals.
So that was CLI?
Yeah. Contract line item number. As opposed to SIN, which is special item number. Okay. So now once you put all this stuff together, and again, you'll notice that the biggest pain in the neck, quite honestly, is going to be for you to go back and find invoicing support. I mean, if you sell a product to your customer all the time, you're going to have a ton of invoices. You can just pick 3 and send them in and call it done. What the government doesn't want you to do is to say, I'm a training provider, and I provide classes, and here are my training class prices. But you know what? I've always wanted to paint, so I think I'm going to put painting on my supply schedule. And I don't have any customers that have ever paid me for training before. They don't want to be the test bed for that. Go off, so put your training, like for me, put your training on first. Go find some commercial person that will pay you to paint for them, and then use their invoicing support to be able to put it on your contract. So now all your information is uploaded into into eOffer, and then they lock your bid. They will now go through and look at your pricing. They'll look at your past performance. And one thing I'll just keep in mind as we go through this, GSA is the training ground for a lot of contracting officers. You can get a really great contracting officer who's been doing this for years. You can get somebody who just got out of contracting officer school and is wet behind the ears.